Rockhopper here. Let's take a little drive across the extreme southern portion of Saskatchewan, Canada. Welcome to Saskatchewan. Views stretch far and wide, broken only by the occasional tree or grain elevator. When people think of the prairie provinces of Canada, Saskatchewan probably first comes to mind. With thousands of square miles of gently undulating prairie and flat farmlands, the province's 1,200,000 residents live mainly in the southern prairie half of the province, while the northern half is mostly forested and sparsely populated. Roughly half live in the province's largest city, Saskatoon, or the provincial capital, Regina. I just entered Saskatchewan, and it looks more like a farm road here. It is paved, but the weeds are pretty high on each side. Yeah, I don't think this place gets a lot of traffic. Not this area, anyway. When I pulled over to take in the vastness of the region, I made acquaintance with a pretty hawk who didn't seem too concerned with my presence. I drove along a lonely road on what was called the Redcoat Trail and stopped to check out what turned out to be a historic structure. Judging by the condition of this sign, there were few travelers here. I was really starting to enjoy the openness of the landscape, and anything out here easily caught my eye, like this place. I was to learn that almost all these little towns along my route would have the skyscraper of the plains, the grain elevator. But I was surprised when I came across what appeared to be a helium plant. The miles rolled on, or in this case the kilometers. Farms and ranches spread sparsely. It seems even more sparse here than eastern Montana. Just an occasional farm or ranch out here scattered miles apart. Across the prairie, scattered wreckage of old, lost Canada. Old vehicles, farm machinery, houses. I don't think I've ever seen dryland pea farming on such a grand scale. I was enjoying the feeling of a truly open road, almost devoid of other vehicles. There was a feeling of desolation and vastness that could only be experienced by being here. I turned onto the Highway 18 East and paused to poke around these leaning structures. I carried on, and it wasn't long before I encountered an abandoned homestead west of Clayton. I poked around and thought how hard life must have been for those who once lived here. I wondered how old the structures were, and this was one of those times where you wish the walls could talk. There were relics of the past, such as these items. I always find it interesting when I discover something like this, the radio still plugged into the outlet, as if one day a decision was made to simply up and leave. Things just left behind. There always seemed to be things that people no longer wanted. It's amazing how many old abandoned farms there are in southern Saskatchewan, and stuff left behind. Like this old Coleman heating stove, a piece of an old mobile oil can. Got the flying horse there. There were the discards of farm life like this, and I noticed it contained strychnine. Old metal coffee cans were sometimes found in abandoned houses. This farm had a lot of structures. This was probably one of the bigger farms when it was in operation. This was once somebody's loving little house. You can still see the touches of green paint up there. The day was heating up quickly. There were cemeteries here that seemed to be forgotten, headstones hidden among the tall grass. There were houses no longer used that must have been beautiful in their day, now forlorn as the elements chipped away at the paint and whittled away at the woodwork. This house is fading like a flower in autumn. Looks like it was a mighty fine house back in its day. I was at the edge of the Bakken Shale Formation, which meant oil derricks. The sign really says it all. Wait for it. And visit Climax. You'll be glad you came. I parked it for the night in Climax and found it to be a laid-back little town. The next day it was onward through more little towns like Bracken and Orkney. Orkney was a classic example of a town fading away. Most of the buildings looked abandoned, even some that weren't. The grain elevator was slowly falling to pieces, and old houses had boarded-up windows. Orkney's grain elevator looked like it had been smacked relentlessly by the wind, the elements chipping away at it. Orkney Community Hall. Even the church was in a state of decay. Fading paint, weathered wood, lichens or moss growing on the roof's peeling shingles. I climbed to the edge of the window and peeked inside the church. It was obvious there hadn't been a service in quite some time. The front steps were encrusted with the lichens growing on them. The area around Sand Lake appeared to have an abundance of deteriorating structures as well, and I noticed several vehicles left to rust in the fields. This truck was now serving as roadside decor. This little ground squirrel was the liveliest and most energetic thing out here. And when I saw the coloration of this bird, I wondered what it was. I could usually figure out what town I was entering, as it was displayed on the side of the grain elevators. There were a few sections of slightly undulating land that helped break up the monotony of flatness. Wood Mountain was a dazzling display of dilapidation. Old structures and vehicles broke the monotony of driving and offered a glimpse into the past. Wood Mountain certainly defined the word abandoned. Though there were people living here, it certainly had an ambiance of a forgotten place. Not only abandoned structures, but a trove of abandoned vehicles as well. GMCs, Fords, Chevys, and others were laid to rust, a vast cemetery of wheeled wonders. There were tractors, buses, pickup trucks, and other vehicles, some of them quite vintage, looking to be from the 1920s through the 1970s. I headed onward and found a place to park for the night, and across the prairie the songs of the birds of the daytime gave way to the coyotes coming out for the evening. I woke up to a breezy day and watched the fields of wheat ripple like ocean waves in the wind. I admired the beauty of flowers I was unfamiliar with, and soon noticed that I was parked beside a historic trail. When I got back on the road, I stopped to look at what I was later told were fields of flax, their blue blossoms nodding in the wind. Beyond the farm fields there was Grasslands National Park. I wanted to hike around, but temperatures approaching 100 degrees had me content with short walks. The east block of the park that I was visiting is etched with canyons of badlands and is full of dinosaur bones. After the park, it was back to the farmlands and abandoned houses. That's the only resident now. Wow, there's actually hills here in Saskatchewan, little hills. The area around Rock Glen was one of the few places where there were small hills. Smoke from the fires in BC and Montana created surreal-looking sunsets. It's a hot day in Saskatchewan, 101. The temperature just keeps going up. There was no sign of life at Fife Lake. The few people who were here were likely staying inside as the unrelenting heat scorched the region. This little town looked to be fading away. Houses looked like they hadn't been painted for 30 years. The main business appeared to be the bar. Coronac, a town named after a horse, and a winner at that, 1926. That horse raced. Parking it for the night beside a lake overlooking it, and right out there's a power plant. I was talking to a local guy, and he said they actually up the valley here, they mine coal about 20 miles up, and they bring it down to that power plant to burn. this lake was great for swimming in because the water is like 80 degrees. So it was super warm and really pleasant on a hot day. It was 104 today, so it was a great way to cool off. And this lake is just to the east of the town named for the horse. Here at the lake, I met some friendly locals who suggested I kayak through the culvert to the other side of the lake and paddle around. There was bird life and good scenery, I was told. Time for a little kayak trip. Let's go. Gotta go through the culvert. It's so hot. Cows are standing in the water like hippos. Can't say I've ever seen that before. Well, now they're leaving. Guess I spooked them. We've got some white pelicans up ahead. And carpets of these carp or whatever they are, bunching up in the water. Looks like maybe some Canada geese over there. This is pretty interesting. Just a few feet from my kayak, I got some fish. I guess they're just out here feeding. I could probably reach out and touch them with the kayak paddle. They're that close. Back through the culvert. There are spiders in here. I was told about that. So, yeah, quite a few spiders here and there. Arachnophobes, beware. After the kayak trip, it was back on the road and exploring the abandoned structures again. This place looked quite old, a pioneer homestead perhaps, judging by the style of house and the old wagon wheels out front. Can't believe we're actually getting into some little hills here. Stealth camped on a piece of private land just west of Lake Alma. The loneliest road, not one car in 13 hours. Every little town's gotta have an ice rink. You never know when the next great Canadian hockey player might come from one of these little towns. This is Lake Alma. Looks like the library was once a school. Another dead school here at Lake Alma. The school lasted until 1998. The LA Hotel. Well, the other LA. Not the one down in California. A couple k's beyond Lake Alma are some very pretty horses. Hey, bud. Hello. Hi. Store looking a little faded there. But there is this place. This is Nathan here in Torquay, and he's got a convenience store that he's starting up. So not all the towns are dying, he's bringing some new life. Tell us about that.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Nathan Randell. I'm here with my wife's store, Whisk Goods Bakery in Torquay, Saskatchewan. We got a little project here. We've been trying to get a lot of small vendors from Saskatchewan in. We've got some local canned products. We've got lots of meat products. We're trying to bring our little community back together.
Awesome. So if somebody needs something, like you've got a little convenience store, they can just come by and pick it up?
Stop in, check us out. We got milk, flour, bread, everything.
Okay, so they don't have to drive all the way to Estevan anymore?
No, you save yourself about 40 minutes.
So a lot of this stuff is actually homemade?
Yeah, these are also growing right here in Saskatchewan. A lot of these pickles, carrots, all these are grown in Almeida, Saskatchewan, Oxford, Saskatchewan. So just a lot of small vendors putting a lot of effort in.
So this is just like your grandma would make?
Yeah, exactly. You're finding everything. You got mustard, pickles, and stuff you never even heard of sometimes.
Entering Estevan, this is the big city of the extreme south of Saskatchewan. About 13,000 people, roughly. Oil and gas and agriculture pretty much sum up the economy of the town of Estevan, the largest in the region. It's a service town for the outlying areas. This sea turtle's pretty far from the ocean. Looks like Estevan's downtown is under some street repairs. There are nice recreational facilities for the residents, such as ice rinks and indoor swimming pools. One of the fun things about traveling to different places is you get to try different things, like these spicy dill pickle potato chips. Tastes like pickles all right, with spice. I also like getting these cookies up here in Canada because they're made with real butter. I say if it's not made with real butter, it's not a real cookie. In the States, going into the grocery stores, it's almost impossible to find cookies made with real butter anymore. I think this guy has on display every truck he's ever had on the farm in his lifetime, and maybe even all the trucks from his father's lifetime. There's just a long line of trucks to be seen here. The bright yellow fields of flowers so commonly seen in this part of the country are canola. Frobisher was another place that had weather-beaten and abandoned buildings scattered throughout the town. Judging by this house, it would seem that there were once more prosperous times in the region. Farther down the road, I encountered Oxbow. Oxbow doesn't seem to be slipping into oblivion quite as much as some of the other small towns. It has some nice touches about the place. It seems more tidy and maintained, and some interesting touches of humor. Not all the towns along southern Saskatchewan are dying. Some of them are remarkably well equipped. Some of them have municipal swimming pools. Many of them have libraries. Most of them have ice hockey rinks and other amenities, like a gas station or a store. While I managed to find some places to park for the night that weren't too bad, as you can see, some places were less than glamorous. Farming and oil drilling seemed to sum up the region in a nutshell. Kind of cool. A lot of these little towns along Route 18 going through southern Saskatchewan, they're so small you could fit everybody in the town in the municipal swimming pool if they had one. Well, these towns actually have places where you can just park overnight. They have electrical hookups, water, and sometimes even a little park like this one here in Caryvale. And they're usually about $15, sometimes $20 a night like this one. You might still find things you thought were gone, like a payphone in Caryvale. It says that Gainsborough is the oldest incorporated village in Saskatchewan. And this is Gainsborough here. There's a garage for sale if you're interested. It's funny how one town can look somewhat prosperous and just down the road is another that looks like it's fading away. I've noticed almost every one of these little towns has a Saurus Street. Can somebody tell me why that is? Why are these towns dying? I suppose there are many contributing factors. Isolation, torrid summers, winters that dip to -40, a lack of a diverse economy, endless wind, flat topography, and so on. Well, that concludes our journey through southern Saskatchewan. I hope you've enjoyed exploring it. Right here is Manitoba. So don't forget to give me a like on the video, share, and subscribe. Till next time, this is Rockhopper. I'll see ya.